Welcome to the second installment of the Citizens for Open and Responsible Edgewood podcast. We're happy to join you today. Today is November 8th, 2019, and we're here today to give you an update and recap of the November 6th Town Council meeting. We also want to take this opportunity to welcome you to attend the public forum that CORE is putting on at Legacy Church on Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. here in Edgewood. I'm joined today by Jerry Powers, who's with me on the first edition of the CORE podcast. And with that, we'll begin our discussion. How you doing, Jerry?
Good, Adrian. Thanks again for having me, and I'm looking forward to more of these council recaps. I think they're very useful. The whole idea we conceived of behind this was the town is so lacking in transparency that it's been very difficult. It's been like pulling teeth to get information out of the town. So we thought it would be a good idea that you and I kind of elucidate what's been happening at the town council meetings, recap what happened, and put it in a context that's short enough that the average person who's trying to raise their family and trying to work can take a few minutes and know what happened at the meeting and what it means for them.
And for those who don't know, and for those who are unable to attend town council meetings in person, we are live streaming the meetings on both the Eye on Edgewood Facebook page and the Eye on Edgewood website. And you can also catch the recordings on YouTube. They are not live streamed as they are on Facebook, but they're available in a permanent library that we're keeping so that anybody who's interested can go back and watch those council meetings and get an opportunity to see how your town government conducts its business.
And I want to take a minute just to thank everybody who has been tuning in to our podcast, and also on social media. There's been a tremendous amount of activity and discussion, which is what we wanted, to get information out to where people could discuss it and understand what it means for them and form their own opinions. One of the things that I think is very useful is that we're also now at a juncture where before this meeting, the town felt like nobody was really watching them. And now with all this social media activity and with people that they know about our meeting, they have somewhat moderated their behavior a little bit. So I want to thank everybody, because just watching and having your eye on Edgewood, no pun intended, is having a positive impact on our town government. There's a lot more to go. There are a lot of things going wrong, but it's gratifying to see that there is some positive impact from the organizing and just getting the information out there.
And for those who don't know, transparency is our main goal. It's not our objective to push any particular ideology, any political message or political party. We just believe that in order for people to participate in local government and to be an informed electorate, as our founding fathers had desired the people to be, you have to know what's going on so that you can have meaningful input. And it's just been a challenge to get any information out of the town and to figure out what they're up to.
Yeah, CORE is just really just a bunch of citizens. We are not incorporated. We don't have a formal structure, but we have different ideologies to a degree. We have we're from different political factions and parties. But the one thing that we all agree on is that self-governance is best, and that sunshine is the best disinfectant. So we're trying to shine a light on what's happening. And it's been a little disturbing to see the town resisting those efforts. And that kind of leads into what the number one thing I wanted to mention tonight. Councilor Audrey Jaramillo made us aware, the CORE group made us aware of something that is extremely disturbing, and that is that she stumbled across, she wasn't notified by the mayor or by the other councilors who were aware of this, that there has been for the last year an open investigation by the state auditor's office into the finances of the town of Edgewood. They don't open an investigation lightly, and they certainly don't carry it on for a year without something very serious happening. But what is really disturbing to me is that it's disturbing enough that they're hiding things from the public or actively trying to suppress public input. But when you're doing that with a town councilor, just because they may have a different opinion, they may make an issue of it in public, there's no way I can see that you can adequately run a town. Councilor Jaramillo is actually a CPA, certified public accountant. The vast majority of her work and her firm is auditing municipalities and auditing state agencies to keep them honest, which we all want. So besides just hiding information from her, they're hiding it from the very person who has the biggest depth of knowledge, background in this, and competence in this area. In good governance, you want to use your talent pool that is available to you. She should actually be at the forefront of this response, looking into what's going wrong, making sure that they develop policies or procedures where it will not happen again. So that's something we just found out. And in doing a little more research, once we were made aware of this, we started doing a little more research, and we found out that up until about March, the town had been responding back to the state auditor's office and giving them documents they were looking for. And since March, the auditors made a request, and it has been completely stonewalled. So the town has not responded back to the auditors with what they needed since March of this year.
And what have we learned about the method of the town's response to the state auditor's office?
That's a really, it's almost unbelievable to me that we've learned that the town clerk has been driving documents to be hand delivered to the state auditor's office in Santa Fe instead of going through the normal procedures of scanning a document and digitizing it and taking it up there. And many of these are already digitized. So all he'd have to do is email them out. But email, as you know, and digital records are subject to the Inspection of Public Records Act, which is the New Mexico version of the Freedom of Information Act. It's where citizens can make a written request for any written document, and the town or the agency of the state has to respond and give those documents. So when you see somebody going to such extreme lengths to avoid the inspection by the public that was designed not only by the founding fathers, the federal government, the state government, it is extremely disturbing and says to me that there's something that they're hiding that is of significance.
And presumably it doesn't seem like there's any other purpose other than to conceal these records.
No, because the town clerk who's busy has to drive to Santa Fe. He's getting paid on our dollars to drive something that he could punch a button and digitally send by email. He's also getting reimbursed for his mileage, and et cetera. So we're paying the price for the cover-up.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's astounding, really. So that again is an effect of what we're doing by keeping our eye on Edgewood and by people participating, even if it's through comments or just viewing our media podcasts. It says that we are having an impact because they are going underground and they're doing things specifically to hide. So we are receiving information from counselors, we're receiving information from the public that has special knowledge, and that's kind of the next thing on tonight's agenda that happened at this meeting, is that one of our the members that has been affiliated with CORE, has worked with CORE, and is really doing important work in this area, is Karen Kaiser. She discovered that the mayor had appointed his first cousin to the Planning and Zoning Board, which is an important position because the Planning and Zoning Board, as you know, brings forward changes in ordinance that affect how property is dealt with, whether our property rights are protected, whether business is encouraged or discouraged in the town. So,
and these people are not elected.
No, they're not elected. They are appointed. And the whole idea, there's an anti-nepotism ordinance that was installed in 1999. I think it was under Larry Cady, our first mayor. And they recognized the importance of not having nepotism, especially in a small town environment, because you can get a clique going and it creates conflicts of interest and problems. So it's not an open process that way. So maybe we can, should we put that clip up on nepotism so that we can see what it says? So here you see that the ordinance prohibits any relative of the mayor, a councilor, or the municipal judge being either hired or appointed or even volunteering, an appointment to a volunteer position. So no person shall be hired, promoted, or transferred in any capacity as a volunteer to a position. So that's by the mayor, the councilor, the municipal judge. Certainly the mayor knew all along that Cheryl Huppert's was his first cousin. And he should be familiar with the nepotism. These are the rules the town runs on. So maybe we can play the clip from Karen Kaiser, and she's talking about this, making them aware of it.
In reading that, I became uncomfortable about something I perceived to be a conflict, and I may be mistaken. But I wondered, Mayor Bassett, if you might have appointed your first cousin to the Planning and Zoning Commission when you first took office. I may be mistaken about the family relationship, and I'm a little uncomfortable bringing it up because it's not really my business. And then I thought, actually, it is my business. In the essence of fair play and open disclosure, the nepotism ordinance expressly prohibits that appointment. So perhaps you could explain it to us. Thank you.
And now that we've heard Karen Kaiser's statement, in the 2 minutes that she's allotted for public comment, and you can see that they were prompt to cut her off, she asked the mayor directly to address the issue and to respond and to educate the citizens of this community about whether or not there is this family relationship.
Exactly, and I want to point out, like you said, the timer was going. This to me is not good practice for open comment. It actively discourages people because they've got this clock ticking. Makes a lot of people nervous to see the seconds ticking away. And then when the bell goes off and the 2 minutes is over, even if you're in the middle of a thought, you get cut off. I think it's rude behavior, number one, and I think it's not considerate of the public. It certainly doesn't encourage input by the public.
Well, I've noticed that in recent town council meetings, and this seems to be the practice going forward, that as soon as they approve the agenda, the first order of business after that is for the mayor to essentially rebuke the crowd and to tell them how things are going to go down.
Yeah.
They call them guidelines, and some of the things that they say is that these guidelines are intended to expedite public business. In order to do that, the public needs to remain silent. The only input that will be received from the public is their 2-minute comment period. And if a counselor, in the course of the public discourse and discussion about various items on the agenda, wants to hear from a member of the public, they actually have to make that request through the mayor. The mayor will call a vote, and unless they get a majority of the council to say the member of the public can speak, he can't be heard from.
And I want to point out, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to get into this in depth in our meeting on November 14th at Legacy Church. So I want to encourage everybody to come, bring your friends, bring your family, because we can't possibly go into everything tonight. This is literally just the tip of the iceberg. So maybe we could play the clip. The mayor did not respond, but Cheryl Huppert's kind of did respond, and I want people to see that.
I've been on planning and zoning for 2 years. I was appointed by Brad Hill. When we first started the planning and zoning, we hardly had enough people to show up to run a meeting. And so I've stayed with it for these years because not many people want to volunteer. Karen has a concern on this. The other thing I just want to address, I keep hearing about how Edgewood is not transparent and people can't find the council members' phone numbers. On the website, I checked our website and every one of your phone numbers and email addresses are on that website. The other thing is, if there's complaints that, the town's not transparent. And I don't know how it can be more transparent when all the agendas, all the meeting minutes, all the audio is on the website and it goes back, quite a few years. So anybody who wants to find out what's going on in the town can certainly go to the website and find out on council meetings as well as planning and zoning meetings. And I did kind of distress at these town meetings. It seems like that there's just so many people are into whatever's going on in town for how it profits themselves sometimes. Whether we're talking about commercial land and what can go on or can't go on and whatever. I don't hear too much discussion about the safety of the people and the welfare of the general public, but a lot of concern about or protecting our sewer system. It seems to be that there's a lot of self-interest, and they don't like order in our meetings. I appreciate the order that you've given, John, Mayor Bassett, to the meetings. I think that's helpful.
And now you'll notice from the response that Ms. Huppert's comes up, and her very first remark is, "I will answer Karen Kaiser's question." And what answer did we actually get?
Well, she didn't really answer the question. And this, I'm laughing about this, but it's not funny in this respect. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm laughing. But it's extremely disturbing to me that Cheryl Hubbard is attempting here to say that she's criticizing that people are thinking the town is not transparent, while she's intentionally misleading the public. Because here's what happened. She didn't come in and say, I am the mayor's first cousin. She didn't say, I'm not the mayor's first cousin, but she instead said, Brad Hill appointed me, the previous mayor. Well, that's irrelevant because she has been reappointed by this mayor, and she knows that.
Twice.
So by obscuring the facts, it's a lie of omission where she doesn't deny it, she doesn't say it's true, but she misleads the public into thinking it doesn't matter because she was originally appointed by a different mayor. That doesn't matter one iota to this nepotism ordinance.
And this creates collateral problems that could arise from this appointment, because it's very possible that all of the actions that Cheryl Hubbard has been involved in on her time in the Planning and Zoning Commission could be invalid or could invalidate what the P&Z did because she wasn't properly appointed. She shouldn't have been on that board.
Yeah, being an attorney, you know that, and it's important in several respects. One is any ordinances or laws that have been enacted coming from the P&Z and actions they've taken on them could be invalidated, but also every land use decision that has been made by the Planning and Zoning Commission while she's on it is now subject to being overturned, which it would be overturned by somebody who wasn't happy with one of those decisions coming forth and filing a lawsuit. That means more legal fees for the town. The mayor ran on a platform. One of his platform items was to reduce the town's legal fees. Well, this certainly isn't an action that is likely to do that, just the opposite.
And do you want to discuss some of the penalties for violating the nepotism ordinance?
Well, the penalties are serious. This is a serious matter, and in just looking at the, maybe we can put that clip back up, you can see that down at the bottom there's a penalty, Section 3. Any town official or employee who violates this section is guilty of malfeasance of office, which is not a small matter, and shall be subject to dismissal or removal. And shall be punishable as subject to a fine of $500 or 90 days in jail or both. So this is not a parking ticket. It's not a speeding ticket. It's a serious infraction.
And because these penalties apply to officials or volunteers, this could presumably be applicable to both the mayor and Cheryl Hubbard.
That's correct. So it's just really bad practice, and the mayor obviously knew that she was his first cousin and should have known about the nepotism ordinance, which I'm sure he did.
Not something you easily forget.
No. So the other thing that happened in that clip with, if you notice with Cheryl Hubbard, is she was taking some swipes at the public. And she was saying, well, I think people that say the town is not transparent are off base, and they're only doing it out of greed, profit motive, or self-interest. And so one of the things that has happened recently, we've also had an effect here. We had some good results in that the Planning and Zoning Commission, which Cheryl Hubbard is on, worked for 9 months, they said, on an ordinance that was designed to take away what has historically been the proper land use rights of those that own commercial property here, which affects businesses, startups, opportunity. And they were going to take those rights away and put them as a conditional use, which means you have to apply, you have to go through a public hearing, you have to hire a development consultant now because it's a much bigger process. It's not a given that you can use it for what you bought it for, even though you expected to use it for that. And then you end up having to maybe even hire an attorney. And then the town has to have their attorney come in, which increases legal fees. So it's complicating, it's micromanaging, and it's taking historical rights away that lead to depression of people's ability to use their property for what they originally bought it for and intended, and suppresses business, startups. It's harder for a startup to come in and go through that entire process when you could just buy a piece of property, know that you could use it for a small brewery or brew pub or something on that order. That's harmless and actually has a benefit to the town.
And we actually want more business opportunities here in this community.
Absolutely.
We want people to succeed.
Yes.
We want options for us to get services where we don't have to drive all the way to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And every small business has to start someplace.
Right.
And usually that's at the ground floor.
Exactly. And you don't want to have $200,000 in capital to start a business when you're in your mid-20s. You might be a great mechanic working on a payroll for one of the local dealers, and you want to start up your own business and be on your own. Well, that's good because it creates competition and that's always good for the public. And then it also creates the opportunity for this young guy to take his expertise that he's worked hard to accumulate and move into possibly the disappearing middle class. People are always talking about the disappearing middle class. Well, this is how it disappears. When you make it difficult for our young people to make that move, then it really suppresses opportunity, and they're not nearly as likely to make that move or be able to.
And one of the strict restrictions that we've heard that the town has with respect to commercial properties is that you have to have a site-built building on the property. And that prohibits, like you say, these small startups, sand and gravel pits, woodlots, or any similar business that doesn't actually need a physical structure to be able to conduct their business.
Yeah, we're going to get into that more in our meeting November 14th. There have actually been cases where the town has put somebody out of business because of that very ordinance that you're talking about, and that needs to be revisited. It's not fair to that. And some businesses, like a sand and gravel pit, they need a permanent structure with a public bathroom in order to be able to sell rock out in the front of their property. I mean, certain businesses, it should happen, but a lot of them it doesn't need to happen. And after a year, if you haven't built that building, you're out of business. You lose your license to have that business.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
And when you think about those capital costs that a small business would have to incur in order to be able to bring some sort of opportunity here to Edgewood, they're obviously going to have to pass that cost along to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be you and me.
Well, that is exactly right. That's exactly right. So maybe we could, we had some success in getting them to back off on this new zoning change that would have taken those rights away. So maybe we can play that clip.
I just want to say I'm gratified about the changes that were made. I believe that people know best how to govern themselves, and it's important not to take away rights that are permissive and make them conditional. So I'm happy to see that that's been changed. I think that it's reasonable to address traffic issues. That's one of the biggest impacts or negative impacts of this kind of development. So I'm gratified that these rights are not being taken away from the public, and I think it's important because it allows opportunity for people who live here to know with certainty what they can and can't do with property that may be used for business purposes. So it encourages our own citizens who may be young and upcoming and making the transition from wanting to go into their own business, and it allows them to have the certainty and not take an extra risk that they may buy a piece of property or take an option on the property and then not be able to do what they intended to do. So I appreciate the listening that was done. I appreciate being heard on this issue. I think it's important for the entire town. I do have one other comment. I know Ms. Hubbard made comments about people in town wanting to defend their rights being somehow for their own interests, like it's a bad thing for the public to protect their interests. It's the duty of all of us to protect the rights of our own families, and that has a lot to do with property. So it's easy for someone who is not having their rights assaulted to make the others look greedy. I don't personally own any commercial property in town, by the way. This is a principal issue for me. It's an important issue. There were people that went before me that protected my rights, that allowed me to do what I've done in my own business career. And I want that to be passed on to the next generation. And that's the reason why we're protecting our rights. Thank you very much.
So you can see that I was thanking the town for listening in this particular case, but I have to thank the people that are watching, because just me going up there and complaining about an ordinance, no matter how valid my points are, at times have completely been blown off. Suddenly the town is kind of listening to what we have to say because they know that people are watching. It makes a huge difference to have people paying attention. The other thing you can see in that clip that we just watched is that I'm responding to Cheryl Hubbard's swipes at the public, because as I stated in that portion of the meeting, it's not a bad thing to be protecting your rights and your interests. There are people who fought and died for these rights. There are people that went before me and before you that protected those rights so that by the time we got of age, that we could avail ourselves and we could have a business, we could do what we wanted to do, have the freedom and liberty to do what our founding fathers intended for us to be able to do.
And it's pretty clear that if we don't defend these rights today, there are people who would take them away from us.
Absolutely. So the other thing that's happening now is we're going to have this meeting on November 14th. I think probably by now a lot of people have received one of these postcards, which is our notice that we mailed out to everybody in town to make you aware of the meeting. And at the meeting, we're going to go into some of these issues we're talking about. We've just hit the highlights, and like I said, it's more like an iceberg, a tip of the iceberg. So we're going to go into the EPCOR takeover by the town, the hostile takeover, and we can't find a single event where condemnation took over, a city took over a municipal utility, and it worked out well for the people. We've looked. We've been diligently looking. So there's lots of examples where they were really train wrecks. The average was double the price that was anticipated, doubling of rates, property taxes, mill levies, on top of rate increases. So we want people to come and hear about it and form their own opinions and express themselves on that subject.
And another thing that we want to talk about is the sewer system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the town has been spending millions of dollars. We think it's wasting based on the fact that there are no customers that are hooking up to these extensions, spending millions of dollars that could be spent on roads. When the town was incorporated, I was involved in the original formation of the town, and there were two things that people wanted. We wanted to buy our groceries and goods locally and not have to drive into Albuquerque. We wanted good roads. We wanted paved roads. So with the millions of dollars that we believe has been wasted here in the last 3 years, there's not been a single new road paved, not a mile of new road. There has been some repaving, and there was even a lot of consternation about how that was done because the town tore up Horton Road and left it set there in its torn up state for almost a year. Just poor planning and poor execution.
In the middle of winter on one of the steepest grades in town.
That's right. So we're going to talk about the wasting of money that could be spent on roads and about the openness, not disclosing to the counselors. We're going to talk about the extension of terms. The town has extended their terms in what we think is an unconstitutional fashion. The terms that are expiring would expire in March. There should be an election in March. That's not going to happen.
When is that election going to happen?
Well, it doesn't have to happen now until November of 2021.
Another 2 years from now.
That's exactly right. So we have an idea about how to remedy that. Right now it looks hopeless because there's not going to be a March meeting. The district attorneys in New Mexico sued to unravel that part of the law that affected them where they were required to extend their terms. And they said, if we do that, we're going to be operating in a zone where we have not been elected, and all of the prosecutions that we do could be overturned during that time. And the Supreme Court agreed that it was unconstitutional for them to extend their terms. We believe it is for our counselors and our mayor as well.
And it might be the same type of situation where a series of town actions taken after March could essentially be invalid.
No, that's true. So we don't need more chaos. We don't need more problems with those kind of things. We've already got enough actions that could be unwound and are subject to lawsuits because of that. So we want everybody to come to this meeting. It's going to take all of us to straighten this out and get this town to start being transparent in the government, even if it means having to change the election situation so that we can vote some people out if they're not willing to change their bad behavior and to make this town transparent, open, and responsible, which are CORE's values.
Sure. And transparency is a theme throughout, and it reappears in the decision to extend the term of office for these elected officials. It exists within the sewer system expansion and the repairs to the wastewater treatment plant, the sewer plant. And it's also part of the water conversation as well, because one of the interesting things about the proposed takeover of the EPCOR water system is, as a prerequisite to taking that step, the town had to get a preliminary engineering report that cost them over $30,000. Mm-hmm. And When that matter was disclosed to the public in February of 2019, it wasn't even listed on the agenda. So if you were interested or you had some input on the situation, you couldn't even offer it because you had no notice. It was in fact under the nondescript heading, Matters from the Clerk, that Juan Torres came up and presented a preliminary engineering report to the council that nobody knew had been ordered.
That's another example of what we were talking about, is obscuring and lies of omission, where you're smoking it up and making it confusing, so the public doesn't have the opportunity to really get in and understand what's happening clearly. You'd have to work really hard, which members of CORE have done, and I really appreciate that, because had it not been for that, I wouldn't have been made aware of these things. You guys have been really digging in, doing the heavy lifting, and it's been like pulling teeth to get information on the count, but you've pulled those teeth. So
We pulled a few.
I appreciate that. And one of the things that Cheryl Hupperts was talking about the town not being untransparent, I should say. She mentioned that you can get into the website, you can look up all these things. Well, the truth of the matter is, as you've experienced, that the agendas oftentimes have action items that say action on resolution number so-and-so. Nobody knows what that is. And it turned out the one I looked at was the paving of Church Street. Well, why can't you just say, like other towns do, and other counties, the Santa Fe County even does this, that this is the subject matter, is the paving of Church Street. That makes it transparent. The other thing that has happened is the mayor, you can look at the March minutes of the March meeting, and they're pretty descriptive of what happened. Now the mayor has instituted new rules that say that they're not going to be that descriptive. And in fact, it's very difficult for me. I attended the meeting. I look at the minutes, and from what's on those minutes, I can't tell what I already know happened.
Sure. And one of those changes has been to eliminate the public comment recitation of what is said during the meeting in those minutes.
That's right. We're all anonymous now, and we don't know what we said at those meetings, because they don't want us to be able to go back and say, well, we informed you about this information. We showed you what was happening. We told you, here's where it is in the minutes. You can't do that anymore.
No, as of today, when you look at the minutes, it says public comment was received, public comment was considered by the council, and that's all you get.
Yeah. So please come to our meeting November 14th. Bring your friends, bring your family. It's going to take all of us to get this done, but we can get it done. We're already having a positive impact on the town's behavior. They know they're being watched. We think we can do a lot better than that, and we're committed to making sure that Edgewood becomes an open and transparent town.
And what we want to do at the public forum is we want to give you information. We want to educate you. We want to tell you that there's strength in numbers. We want to give you hope, because at the end of the day, our future is in our own hands.
That's right.
And we can either steer the ship in the direction we want it to go, or we can let others do it for us.
And the way it sits right now, you can hardly get any time for public comment, and there's a stopwatch on the wall that's making you nervous while you're trying to express yourself. It's a very intimidating environment for most people to come and express. It's a hostile environment. So come to our meeting. It's not going to be like that. The first half of the meeting will be information, and lots of it about what's happening with the town. And then we're going to open it up to public comment. We're going to hear what you have to say, and your words and your opinions matter to us, and we want them out in the open.
Absolutely. We also intend to have some subject matter experts there. We'll have some materials to hand out. And for the questions that we're not able to answer, please know that we're still in the course of doing our work, and we're committed to the cause, and we'll see it through to the end, whatever that looks like.
So we'll see you on November 14th, and thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. Hope to see you there.